Good. Melamies rubicola. I wanted to show this picture. This is the mosaic-tailed rat. I wanted to show the picture, A, because I'm probably the first person to show a rat at the Sustainable Cities Conference today, which is good. But also because this rat delivers a message to us all about climate change. It is the first mammal in Australia and probably the world to go extinct as a result of climate change. It lives on a small cay called Bramble Cay in the Torres Straits off Queensland. And last year it was announced that as a result of sea level rise about 6 millimetres per year during the 90s, that its habitat had pretty much disappeared, and it now disappeared off the only island it had been found about. So I wanted to start with that as a reminder because it may be a small island off the coast of Queensland, but we all live in islands in various different ways, and I think it's a telling reminder about the immediacy of climate change. Back in 2007, I was the CEO of WWF in China, based in Beijing. And we signed a partnership with the Baoding municipal government, a small third-tier city about 2.5 hours south of Beijing. And at that stage, they were going to put in a renewable energy economic development zone. We work with them to attract both business and investors from around the world. I went to that site to see a PV factory which had just been installed. And it was all very impressive, and I thought this is really good in the Chinese context. But the light bulb moment really came 2 years later when I was reading a report in late 2009 by the State Council's Research Development Centre. And it analysed the rollout of the construction of PV capacity manufacturing across China. In that past year, they installed 13 plants in 13 provinces at a payback rate of 11 months on the investment. And we're discussing how to continue to expand that. And I realised that if the Chinese continued to do the amount of investment in R&D and production, that it would change the price of photovoltaic cell production for the foreseeable future. And today, we see that price has continued to decline and will continue from there on. I thought I would pick up 3 trends, whether they're mega trends, that might be of interest to you. The first one is around food. Over the past 40 years, food production has resulted probably in anywhere between 67 to 70% of all biodiversity loss on this planet. It is by far the largest driver of ecosystem degradation. And as we move to feed 9 billion people by 2050, it will continue, we believe, to be one of the greatest drivers. How we feed the cities of the world sustainably is going to be one of those big challenges. The next trend is what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is a report published by the World Bank, which shows who benefited from globalization through 20 years up to 2008. And you can see that the good news is that we lifted millions, if not hundreds of millions of people out of poverty during that period. The bad news is that in middle-income countries, a lot of people went backwards, particularly in middle or working-class backgrounds. And the ugly is that the concentration of wealth at the end increased at an extremely rapid rate. The other one is something around what I learnt at university more than 20 years ago. And at that stage was an academic piece around how do we deliver a circular economy, how do we link up different parts of industry to produce things more efficiently or to use waste in a way that makes money. And this is the Sundrop Farm in Port Augusta in South Australia. If you're ever in Port Augusta, go and have a look at this place. It is a concentrated solar plant next to 20 hectares of greenhouses, plus a water facility that pumps 27 million litres of salt water through the system every day to cool and heat it. It is carbon neutral, water neutral, pollution neutral, and produces, in this case, tomatoes at probably somewhere between 20 to 25% more than the best greenhouses in the rest of Australia. And I think is the sign of the future and how we might start to address some of those concerns. But I wanted to finish on something that you're probably all grappling with in your businesses at the moment, which is digital disruption. And so I'm not going to tell you all how to suck eggs. You're all starting to, I'm sure, thinking about what it means for my business today, but also what it means for my business into the future. But I'll tell you a little bit of a story that happened in the last couple of months. We work with a number of clean tech companies around providing zero carbon solutions and promoting those in the Australian and international markets. And I met with an integrated provider of electricity to households. So it's an integrated system of production, storage, and technology. The interesting bit, unlike China a decade ago, where it was all about the hardware, this time it's all about the software. And in renewable energy, I like to talk about renewable energy software because this is where the great disruption is going to appear. And it's important that we think that through, not only how digital is disrupting our businesses, but the multiple disruptions that are going on are being accelerated, I think, by the digital world that's around us. So thank you very much.
Hello. So there it is already. I have one slide, so if I don't change slides, don't worry about me. It's only one slide. So I'm talking about the mega trend of future of work. And thinking about sustainability and green cities led me to a light bulb moment that came to me last year at the World Economic Forum in Davos. I had long known that technology was bringing lots of good things, and we all know it does. For example, better choices for consumers, better solutions to long-term health problems, better sophisticated, complex clinical interventions, new ways of working with technology in agriculture, better ways of managing traffic in smart cities, and of course, different ways of managing our connected homes. What was suddenly becoming very, very clear to me were two things. The fact that technology advancement moves with a breathtaking speed and at a scale that we've never seen before, and that the impact of this is really challenging the ways we think about the concept of work and the role of work in our society. Since then, numerous reports have come out predicting the impact of technology on jobs. Let me just give you a few data points around this. So the World Economic Forum predicts that 5.5 million jobs will already be gone by 2020. The OECD states that 1 in 9 jobs globally will disappear in the next 2 decades. The Bank of England declares that Britain will lose up to 15 million jobs over the next 2 decades. The most recent White House report states that up to 83% of lower paid jobs are under threat or at risk. In Australia, the predictions by CEDA in the Future Workforce Report were that up to 5 million and more jobs would be gone by 2030. Now that also affects emerging markets. Think about emerging markets where human resources were easily accessible in the past. Technology is now posing really big challenges to those labor markets. Couple more data points. In October 2016, the World Bank estimated that technology could cause wide-scale job losses of up to 77% across all industries in China, while in India, technology could replace up to 69% of manual jobs over the next 2 decades. And in Southeast Asia, approximately 56%, or 137 million workers, are at risk of being displaced by automation over the next 2 decades, according to a report last year from the International Labour Organization. We also know that substitution rates are at much lower levels than the job losses. So far less new jobs, technology-driven jobs, are needed than the jobs that are disappearing. So if this occurs, and all indications are that this is already in full swing, it will have significant social and economic implications, and obviously has implications on the built environment. So my aha moment at this point was this. We live in a world in transition from one model of society that we know and are familiar with to a model of society and a concept of work that we don't know yet, that hasn't actually been developed yet. And while we are engaged in discussions about long-standing, familiar, old issues over here, on the other side, what is happening is that the real game changer for the world as we know it is the rise and development of new sophisticated technologies. So this recognition then raises a whole lot of questions. One of them is, if machines do all the work, what will we do?